Hello and welcome to the Distractaholics Podcast. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Morgan.
And Morgan, I am so excited to talk about the movie we're talking about today. We are talking about my least favorite movie, Fight Club.
I was really confused when you said you were so excited.
We're bringing in high energy today. High energy.
Wait, what? Oh,
Morgan,
high energy.
do you know how exhausting it is going to be to talk about a movie that has the same name as me, one of our main characters? We're going to be talking Tyler this, Tyler that, and it's going to mess me all up.
And you're going to be really confused because you both are so much alike.
I know, we have the same body.
I'm laughing with you, not at
you.
I
wasn't laughing, darn it.
All right, so I'm going to start us off with a summary of Fight Club, which is based on a book by Chuck Palahniuk. I'm butchering that. I'm so sorry, but
Chuck's going to be really upset.
Yeah, Chuck's going to be mad at me. So the summary off of IMDb is an insomniac office worker and a devil-may-care soap maker form an underground fight club that evolves into something much, much more. Sounds pretty dramatic to me.
Super, super dramatic.
And as always, if you haven't watched the movie or read the book, stop now because there will be spoilers. As much as I'm not a fan of the overall movie message, this movie has a very good twist. And I think a lot of people who haven't seen it for the first time don't see it coming. So if you haven't seen it, stop now, watch it, and come back to us.
But let's get into the characters. Let's talk about Edward Norton, who is our main character, Jack.
He's not named Jack. I told you he's not named Jack.
It says Jack right in the script.
No, I don't care. It's not in the book. He has no name. He's just the narrator.
It's in the script.
No, stop. No.
What else do you want to say about Jack?
Jack has some issues. Do you want me to talk about Jack or do you want me to talk about Edward Norton?
You know what? You're running with it. Let's do it.
Jack has some issues that we'll discuss throughout this entire thing, I'm sure. But he's a very interesting person and we learn a lot about him and about what he desires. Edward Norton, I mean, he's in a lot of things, but he does a really good job in this movie. And also, I really like him in American History X, which is a very deep movie as well. But yeah, he does a really good job in this. I feel like overall, the actors that they chose and that they casted for this movie did an amazing job overall. I was really impressed with who they picked for all the characters.
Next up.
Who do we got next?
Up.
All right.
Ready?
Yep. My
body double, Brad Pitt, who plays Tyler Durden. Seriously, how sexy is Brad Pitt in this movie?
Okay, so I thought the same thing, which I'm going to be straight up about it. I'm not a huge Brad Pitt fan. There are maybe 3 movies I like him in. I don't find him that attractive, but he is attractive in this movie. But I was reading on Reddit because I, of course, had to go there to analyze and see what other people thought of this movie. And people were ripping on how he looked for this movie and that he was way too emaciated and way too skinny and all this other stuff. And I think the person who was bitching about it was from the bodybuilder subreddit. But they were just going on and on about how scrawny he was and how he's like, anyone can get this body if you don't eat for a week and all you do is lift weights. I'm like,
challenge accepted.
What? No. All right, who do we got next, Tyler? We've talked about Brad Pitt enough. He's overhyped. Move on.
Helena Bonham Carter, who plays Marla Singer. All right, hold on, Morgan. Let me go first. Let me go first.
Are you gonna trash her because I trashed Brad?
Morgan, I want you to promise me that we're still gonna be friends after I'm done with this. Promise me.
I don't know.
Promise me.
All right.
I think that she is completely overhyped. I think she's a good actress, but when she's in something, I'm like, oh God, her again.
You're just saying that to get revenge.
No, I actually am not. It's in my notes from earlier. And I put in there, make sure Morgan promises to still be friend.
No, I love how dark she is. And she is dark in a lot of movies, and she does play very similar characters, but I love her. I don't know. And I feel like how erratic she is in this movie really fits the character.
So we have a couple interesting side characters in here. We've got Meatloaf, the Meatloaf, playing Robert Paulson, which we honestly literally just discovered before we started the podcast.
Yeah. I was so shocked because my parents, growing up, we used to listen to Meatloaf, and I was like, what? I only thought he was in like one movie, and that's Rocky Horror Picture Show.
And then we had Jared Leto playing some pretty blonde boy.
Yes. When I first watched this movie, I actually watched it in my freshman college lit class because we read the book and then watched the movie to discuss the differences and just discuss the overall meaning. And I didn't remember him being in it, so when I saw it, I said, oh, it's baby Jared Leto. Very blonde baby Jared Leto.
Let's get into the movie.
When preparing for this podcast, I decided that I obviously needed to reread the book because I read it my freshman year of college. So that's been, 11, almost 12 years ago. So I reread the book in less than a day. And I also gave myself a hand cramp for the next day, like was having some major carpal tunnel issues from holding my Kindle.
That's why you don't read a 200-page book in one day.
That's really not that many pages. In my deep dive to Reddit to see what other people thought of this movie, because I don't remember what my feelings were the first time that I watched it. And I don't know, maybe I fell asleep during when we watched it in class because I didn't really remember anything. And I feel like I would have remembered a lot of the sexual moaning and everything because we were in class and it would have been weird. But I didn't remember that at all. But rewatching this movie, I was very confused on why so many people have why does it have such a following? So that's why I went to Reddit to try and figure out different people's thoughts and everything on it. I got a variety of information of what people were thinking of it. So I'm interested to hear what you think, Tyler, and I'm interested to know what listeners think about it as well, because it has such a following.
How seriously fucked up is it to go to support groups for diseases you don't have? That has always made me feel so weird.
Feel dirty a little bit.
I could never do that.
I understand it. I think the reason why he went to the support groups and then actually created Fight Club was because he had the need to belong to something and to feel a part of something and feel like he was making a difference. And he wasn't so much making a difference in the support groups, but he was able to be there and express himself and express his feelings and have the support. Even though he's not dying, he was still losing a part of himself. So I feel like he thought it was he could relate with the other people. And sometimes being overwhelmed by other people's feelings and having those feelings affect you can bring release to people. So I think that's really the reason that he went. Is it right? No, probably not. But he was still getting something out of going to the support groups. And by going to the support groups and being present there, he was potentially helping the people there as well.
So you're right, because he when he gets mad at Marla and he confronts her and she makes fun of him for rehearsing the confrontation, which made me laugh because it's exactly what I would do.
Yeah, I was going to say, that sounds familiar, Hunter.
Yeah. He says he can't cry if a faker is present. So he's going to these so he can show emotion because he feels that he can't show it in his regular life. And that made me ask a really deep question. Why is it that we teach young boys, young men, to not cry, not show any emotion, rub dirt on it, that kind of thing? Why is it? Why do we do that?
I think because it's been the social norm for so long. I feel like it's slowly starting to change in present society, but it's something that has just been instilled to people as parents that, oh, you have a boy? Well, they need to act this way. They need to man up. They need to do this. And I don't know where it stems from, if it's like all the way back to something Tyler talks about throughout the movie, or at least throughout the book, going back to the hunter-gatherer roots and all that type of stuff. Like, is it something so prehistoric that it has to do with you either hunted and you manned up? I don't even like that saying. It's either you toughen up or you die in that type of society. So I think it stems back to that. But
that's so much.
It is. I 100% agree. And I don't think we should teach our children to be any certain way. Except nice to people. So another thing I wanted to bring up about this movie, which I'm sure people will bitch about because people say that this term is overused in our society and people are just being big babies about it. But this movie and this book, I don't think it means to, but I feel like it contributes to toxic masculinity. And I think it's something we definitely need to improve on. Tyler, what are your thoughts? I
agree with you 100%. So I think that a lot of people don't get into the deeper meanings of some of these movies, and we apologize for picking deep movies multiple times in a row now. But
yeah, we gotta stop that shit.
But if you take this movie at surface value of these men beating the crap out of each other, it sends the wrong message of what a male should be. Mm-hmm. And that's not what I'm going to get into it later, but I agree exactly with what you're saying.
Well, and I feel like a lot of people who watch this movie for the first time are usually in their teenage years, because you're like, oh, a movie about fighting and stuff. And I feel like as a teenager, you're not necessarily looking for the deeper meanings in movies. And so you just see this, you see the surface of these men fighting and creating anarchy and all that. And like, you just take those ideas and you're like, well, is this what I should be? Is this how I should be? Is this how I should look? And as an adult and rewatching this as, 10 years later, I definitely see the other meanings that are in this movie. But at the same time, you really have to search for them. We were talking about how we went to the support groups and stuff. So as I'm watching the movie, they're doing the guided meditation. And I know Tyler personally is not a fan of meditation. It's something I've been trying to work on, but it's still very difficult for me, because in meditation, you're not supposed to technically shut your brain off, but you just kind of let it wander. And I'm very bad at that. But anyways, they talk about the narrator's spirit animal, which is a penguin. Tyler, what is your spirit animal?
The mighty wolf.
The mighty wolf. Are you going to do a howl for
Oh, I got nothing.
I think my spirit animal is probably a cat, because I can be super lovey towards people, or I can just hate everyone.
Jack, or the narrator, who, depending on which of these podcast hosts you can believe. And the condo blows up. He calls Tyler. They go to the bar. And this is where Tyler's speeches start. And out of this whole speech he gave, Morgan, there was only one line of it that I thought, okay, that's actually relevant. The rest I thought was all bullshit. Mm-hmm. He says, the things we own end up owning you. And I really think that's true. I know it's true for me, but what did you think about Tyler's speech?
That's so funny, because when I heard it, I thought, wow, that's kind of Tyler. As in you, because of your keyboard collection, okay? You buy a lot of miscellaneous things that aren't necessary. Get rid of that thing. It's older than I am. He has a keyboard that is older than both of us.
It was... So... this says IBM Corp 1985.
Yeah, it's older than both of us. So one of the big topics that a lot of people were discussing, like as one of the positive messages in Fight Club, is how it talks about consumerism, and that basically the things that we consume us, more or less, for lack of better words. But I think that's relevant. I think it's true. But as much as we both as people like things, I think we're also very frugal in an aspect as well. Like, we don't, at least I know you're kind of a brand whore, but did I get the whiskey to come out your nose? Damn it. Close. I know. So I don't buy a lot of name brand shit because I just don't care. But I'm also very comfortable in my life that if there's something that I want, I am able to buy it without, taking out a loan or making my credit card bill unpayable. But I do think that a lot of people find value in the things that they own. Like if you have a Gucci this or a Louis Vuitton that, or I don't even know the other brands of shit because I just don't
Prada.
care. Yeah, whatever.
We got some Yeezys.
I don't even know what that means.
True Religion.
I don't know what any of that is. But so that's basically what I'm saying is that I think some people brand and consumerism is important and it helps them to establish who they are. But I don't feel like that's necessarily something that everyone faces, even in today's day and age.
So I don't know what's wrong with necessarily. I agree with you that some people have this problem of they have to promote an image of who they want to be, and they'll extend their credit or their means beyond that. But I also don't know what's wrong with trying to provide maybe a better life for yourself or making yourself feel better in the short term. So there's the treat yourself mentality, and that's a Parks and Rec reference. And I don't see what's wrong with trying to improve your life a little bit by buying something that you want.
No, one of my thoughts on this too was if you've worked so hard for something, then you shouldn't feel ashamed to buy the things that you want. I mean, there's nothing wrong with consumerism, but I don't feel like we can completely say that it controls every person's life. It plays a part in our lives. 100%. You can't avoid it unless you're living off the grid somewhere, wherever. But I don't think it controls as every aspect of our life unless we let it.
That's fair. So Tyler Durden, we find out, has a nighttime job at a movie theater. Mm-hmm. And that Tyler, at his job, splices in single frames of pornography as the reels run out. And they show this child crying. And all I could think was, how f***ed up is it that somebody splices in pornography to family movies is exactly how they describe it. They don't describe it as just movies. They describe it as family movies.
Family movies. I don't know, but honestly, I was kind of disappointed in the movie. Like, I know at the end, you have that splice, that flash of, I think it's a dick. A dick flash, if you will. But I was kind of disappointed that throughout the movie they didn't randomly just throw shit in there just because it would have been funny.
Did you catch early in the movie they did that with Tyler?
What? So made him like flash? Yeah. So I actually had never caught that before. I paused the movie right at the time that they flashed him in. I went, I thought it was me. Yeah. No, I noticed it part of the way through. I'm like, wait a second, are they like showing his character like being developed? I thought that was really cool. There are so many cool points about this movie, but I just hate the overall message. It makes it so frustrating.
What is it with men in fighting?
That's so funny that you bring that up because that is one of my points. I say, I don't understand watching fighting. I don't think it's just men because I think women really get into it too, but it's just not something that I have ever enjoyed watching. Like, I don't watch UFC fighting. I don't watch WWE. I've never been into any of that type of stuff. I would love to learn like martial arts or like, I've always wanted to learn like self-defense or something like that, but I don't understand the need to just beat the shit out of another person. I mean, I've wanted to hit things before, but I don't know. I wondered what it would if I only with my sister, and it usually led to her throwing me on the ground and then sitting on top of me and telling me or asking me if I was done yet.
You have anything else to add?
After they talk or after they've developed Fight Club, Tyler makes the comment, what you see at Fight Club is a generation of men raised by women. I don't understand this.
Okay, so
are they just saying that all the Gen Xers have absent fathers?
I think so. So here's what I took out of that. And I'm going to defend the statement, and then I'm going to talk about why it's stupid. So if you think about it, it's true. Teachers are, so a lot of the Gen Xers had stay-at-home moms. So sure.
Okay, a lot of, but so did every other generation preceding
Yep.
that.
And then their teachers were mostly female. That's just, I don't know why, but most teachers are female. So I didn't understand what Tyler's problem with it was.
I think it goes back to that there's no, another thing that I was reading was that because there was no Great War, you didn't have the men going off to serve their country or the men trying to provide for their family, that it takes the masculinity out of men of that generation. I don't know. I don't understand it, because saying that at Fight Club, you're seeing a generation of men raised by women. Well, in every generation prior to that, the matriarch is the main person raising the child. I feel like that's a lot different now, but I don't understand, like, how is this generation different than any other generation?
Yep. So in a scene that's coming up, he references that again and basically says that, fathers were supposed to be the image of God. I have the exact quote. And if our fathers were absent, then what does that say about God? So he is saying that they had absent fathers, that they weren't masculine, so they didn't teach their kids to be masculine. But again, I don't see what the problem with any of that is. I don't see why this is an issue.
Well, and if you had a single mother, I mean, the chances are that she's working her ass off to provide for you. So what's a better example than that?
Thank you, Morgan. Thank you. That is exactly what's in my notes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand. And maybe, I mean, I only have my perspective. I was raised by two very, very good people, and I have been very fortunate in my upbringing. So I don't know what it's like to be raised by a single parent. I don't know what it's like to not have a close family. So maybe I'm not the best person to discuss this, but I like to think that I keep an open mind. And I don't understand it.
I hate the phone call scene, Morgan, with Marla, where the narrator / Jack
Thank you.
says, quote, "If I had only wasted a couple of minutes and gone to watch Marla Singer die, it would have prevented all this stuff happening." Blah, 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 blah. I stopped after that point because it set me off. What kind of person does that?
I want to make a little side note here. In the book, the narrator does not answer the phone. Tyler answers the phone.
Which I guess they kind of show.
No, because he answers the phone and then sets it down.
And then Tyler takes over
Tyler
and
picks
answers the
it
phone.
up.
So it's kind of the same thing.
Kind of, but I don't know. Who watches another person die? Is that what your question is?
Who hears somebody say that they're going to kill themselves and just says, "Yeah, let me go watch them die. Let me ignore them." Like, my first reaction would be like, okay, 911, I'm driving over there as fast as I can.
That's another part in the book. Actually, the narrator did call 911, and that's why the cops show up at her apartment.
So why wouldn't they show that? That's a huge redeeming point that they completely left out.
I don't know. But yeah, so what happens in the book is the narrator calls 911, and then Tyler shows up, and they have to like go down the back fire escape or whatever. And yeah.
All right, you've calmed me down a little bit.
I think we've pretty much established that the narrator he's pretty screwed up. He's got a lot of issues that he needs to work out. And I think his animosity towards Marla and both of their fascination with death is what contributes to him saying that. It doesn't make it right, but I think that's where that was going. So Fight Club is developed and working out well. We're seeing all these different Fight Clubs basically blowing up across the country. And next we have the creations of Project Mayhem, Project Misinformation, and I think the other one was Project Assault in the book, at least. I'm not sure what it was in the movie, but so we have these different projects developing, and we also have the narrator's character doing like the copying of all the rules of Fight Club and basically doing the paperwork and everything while he's at work. And the scene where he's basically threatening his boss with coming in and shooting up the entire place, this did not age well. Even in the late 90s, like, mass shootings and everything were starting to become more prevalent. And yeah, it did not age well. I don't understand this whole mentality of let's blackmail everyone to get what we want and feel like we mean something. And I feel like that's the complete purpose and structure of Fight Club. Let's bully people into doing what we want and to make ourselves feel better about us as people. Like we mean something, man.
The chemical burn scene. So Tyler grabs the narrator's hand and pours some kind of chemical on it and causes this burn and won't let him run underwater, won't let him get any relief. And he keeps trying, the narrator keeps trying to go to a happy place, something to distract him from the pain. And Tyler keeps yelling at him, saying, you're ignoring the pain. You need to embrace the pain. You need to embrace the pain. I felt that sent the wrong message. If you are in a painful situation and you need to go to your happy place to get through it, I don't see what's wrong with that.
Basically me getting every single tattoo. But I think the purpose of that, and I feel like all of my ways of thinking and my insightfulness is probably not what everyone else is thinking, and I'm probably thinking I'm a lot deeper than I am. But my view on this was that he was making the narrator stay focused on the pain to make the personality of Tyler be more permanent there. That you can't escape this pain, you need to just relish in it. And I feel like that's kind of giving strength to that alter ego of Tyler. So after we have the chemical burn, Tyler makes the statement, it's only once we've lost everything that we are free to do anything. And this, it's kind of funny that we picked this movie because I feel like this is something that we have discussed throughout this week. And do you feel like that's something that's true?
So Morgan and I literally were discussing this maybe 3 or 4 hours before she started reading the book and saw this quote. And I absolutely agree with it. Sometimes you have to feel like you are hitting rock bottom or close to hitting rock bottom before you can move on from a situation. I think you get stuck in a certain way of thinking, or maybe you live on too much hope. I'm not sure if that applies to everybody, but definitely applies to some people. And
I feel like I'm having Gatsby flashbacks.
And you have to get past that sometimes to truly move on with your life. So yes, I believe that is true. I think Tyler is implying more, based on his philosophy, he's implying more physical things, but I am implying more mental things.
Yeah. And it's sometimes we have to lose a lot of things before we decide to take those chances. So this actually leads to my next thing that I wanted to discuss. One of the first homework assignments of the different projects is that you have to make the human sacrifices. And when I first read this in the book, I'm like, wait, what?
That's a clear indication that you have watched way too much like culty stuff recently.
Okay, is that not what you thought it was going to be?
I don't remember the word human sacrifices in the movie.
Well, maybe it was just in the book, but that's what it was called. And well, actually, no, it is in the movie because on the back of Tyler's bedroom door are a whole bunch of driver's licenses that he's taken from people. And at the top, it says human sacrifices. But that's neither here nor there. So part of the Project Mayhem, and before I was rudely interrupted, so they have to go out and they have to, quote, make human sacrifices. But the meaning of human sacrifice isn't that they're killing this person. Basically, they're scaring the shit out of someone to make them chase their dreams. And it just led me to the thought, is fear the only way we can get people to quit what they're doing, quit the mundane lives that they're living to make them pursue what they truly want?
Nope.
I don't agree with it either, but that's essentially what they're getting at, is that we are helping these people to sacrifice everything that they have in order to achieve their highest self, kind of that self-actualization type thing, maybe. So that's where you get into that convenience store scene where he decides to put a gun to that guy's head. Yeah. Right, to make him go to vet school. Well. Yeah, that's what they're doing for the human sacrifices. And that's why he has that entire door full of licenses, because for each person, each human sacrifice that you make, you take their driver's license and you keep it so you can check up on them and make sure that they're doing what they said they do.
So Tyler's complaining about weaker people attaching themselves to stronger people.
Oh.
And I don't necessarily understand what's wrong with that. I feel like any relationship is about give and take. And sometimes one person will be the strong person and then it'll be switched. So I don't understand what Tyler's complaining about. And then he goes on this rant about how nobody's unique, nobody's special. And I've yet to find two people who are exactly the same. So I just don't really like, similar, yes. Exactly the same, no. This draws me further and further away from Tyler's character and relating to him at all.
Well, I think the whole point of that, it's irony. That whole point is irony. He's talking about weaker people latching themselves on to stronger people. He's basically alluding to the narrator that he's in his mind, that you created this strong person because you're weak and you need to latch onto it. It's irony. Let's talk about a good metaphor here.
All right, metaphoric. I'm feeling metaphoric.
Okay, so I thought it was a good metaphor when we finally, everything circles back. We come to the realization that Tyler is a personality or an identity of the narrator, that the narrator has created for himself so that he can essentially be the person that he wants to be. And so I thought when the narrator is fighting himself in the parking lot, he's actually physically fighting himself. I thought it's a good metaphor of how we fight and torment ourselves on the inside. And he's like, they're actually exhibiting it in a physical sense. I thought that was really fun, and I don't know if that was supposed to be what it was alluding to. I'm using alluding a lot. I don't know what's going on, but I kind of liked to think of it in that way. Mm-hmm. I just blew your mind, didn't I? Mm-hmm. When we went back to that scene and you see Edward Norton beating the shit out of himself, I'm just like, that's kind of how it feels when you're constantly fighting yourself.
I've never had to fight myself, so I'm not quite sure.
I won't be the first to deny it. You know, everybody's got their demons, Tyler.
I don't understand what the point of blowing up the credit card companies is. I know they're trying to wipe out the debt, mm-hmm. and it's 1999. I work in the information technology field, and I have for a long time. I'm kind of old, and I'm familiar with a lot of old technology. And let me assure you, everyone, that in 1999, all of these companies had off-site backups of all of your debt. So blowing up the buildings would have done nothing. So what was the point? Is it metaphorical, Morgan? You feeling very, very metaphoric today.
I'm so insightful.
Typically you are, yes.
Actually, this is very different from the book.
Okay, all right. Lay it on me.
I am gonna drive people nuts with how much I'm gonna say this whenever we cover things that are both movies and books, or books and shows, or whatever. But so, okay, in the book, Tyler has this fascination of how he wants everything to go back to not really prehistoric caveman times, but before. He wants to go back to a less modern society. And so what they were destroying was not the credit card shit. Like, it had nothing to do with the economy. He was actually destroying, was the natural history, the Museum of Natural History, he was destroying historical museums to get rid of history, basically. And so that they could revert back to, I don't know if it's the whole, we study history so we can learn from the past, or what type of bullshit it was. But he basically wanted to send us back in time to an unmodern society.
Well, that's way different than what's shown in the movie.
Yeah.
So which is better?
In the 90s, I feel like, we had, Wikipedia was in the 90s, right? I mean, I had you had Encarta. You had them on the little discs. I did. Yep, see? I did. I had the Encyclopedia Britannica. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, I love those things. Yeah. So, I still feel like you had stuff that was already digitalized. So I don't know how destroying history doesn't get rid of it. I mean, it's still in people's brains, and that's what history is shit passed down from person to person. So that's still going to be possible even if you blow up these buildings. I'm once again going to bitch about how the ending of the book is different from the ending of the movie. In the book, people have probably stopped listening by now because they're annoyed by me with this. But in the book,
Morgan, the people are here for you. Be confident.
I take myself too seriously. In the book, Tyler Durden, the Tyler personality, purposely arms the bombs with the wrong thing so they won't blow up. And the narrator finds this out like as because he says multiple times, I know this because Tyler knows this. I know this because Tyler knows this. So he purposely arms the bombs with the wrong thing so they don't blow up. And Marla and the narrator reconciled where they first met because the narrator's trying to make sure that the soap company Goonies, the space monkeys, whatever, that they don't abduct her, and he's trying to get her out of there. And so he tells Marla to meet him where they first met. So she meets him at the cancer group, and they have a blowout fight or whatever there. But the people from the cancer group are like obviously really supportive, and they're enthralled by everything that the two are discussing. And so at the end of the book, Marla and part of the cancer group actually come up to the top of the building to stop him. And he says, you guys have to get out of here. The building is going to blow. And Marla's like, we know, and we don't care. And they do it to show them that they care for him. And obviously he doesn't blow up the building because his alter personality has rigged it wrong. And he does shoot himself in the face, and it goes out the cheek to get rid of Tyler. But there it ends. And he wakes up in what he thinks is heaven. It is not heaven. He wakes up in a mental institute, and he has the space monkeys basically surrounding him because they are such a part of every society, like every person in society they are entangled in. So he still has these followers that are awaiting his orders for him to come back. And that's where the book ends. Like, so did he actually get rid of Tyler, or didn't he? Like, it kind of leaves it there for a chance for Tyler to come back and take over his life. So that's how it was different, in case you cared.
So I don't like the movie ending at all.
No,
I know you. Okay. I knew you were gonna get really upset about that. I just don't really. There was no resolution for me.
I think the way the movie ends is they make it like almost 100% sure that Tyler's gone. He's disappeared. Now everything's gonna be all right. Marla loves the narrator for the actual narrator's personality, not Tyler's personality, and the narrator's sure of this, and they're gonna live completely...
It's disgusting.
Dysfunctionally happily ever after, or whatever.
There's no such thing.
False. I really enjoyed the ending. The only thing that could have made the ending better is if the building would have blown up while they were holding hands.
That's how I would have ended it.
And killed them both. I love this ending so much because of the Pixie song that is playing. Like, that song is one of my favorite songs, especially just the piano version. I love the straight piano version. It's very beautiful to me. And so I wanted to end our discussion of this movie. Podcast isn't over yet, but end our discussion of this movie. If the world was ending, what song would you want playing? For me, it would be the piano version of Where Is My Mind by the Pixies, Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd, or Chasing Cars by Snow Patrol.
I don't have a good answer for you. Party Like a Rock Star.
No, it wouldn't. You're such a liar. It would be something so sickeningly sentimental. What have you been distracting yourself with this week, Tyler?
A lot of stuff has happened this week.
It's been wild.
Let's see. I've been distracting myself with forced yoga.
I was just gonna bring that up.
I made a trip to Dayton, Ohio.
To see the museums, of course.
Yes. I've been doing some writing, a lot of writing. I've been doing a lot of work because that's just how I roll. And
all I do is work.
That's basically me. And
yeah, me too.
see what else to do. Oh, I watched a movie that I picked and didn't enjoy.
Yeah, I don't know why you picked it. Was so weird. Okay. So your life has not been as interesting as mine. Lack of job leaves me to explore all the things I enjoy. So this week I read Fight Club in less than a day. I finished reading The Secret Garden, which I absolutely adored. It might be up there with one of my favorite books now. It was just so beautifully written.
That's V.C. Andrew.
What?
Who's the author?
Francis something.
I tried to Google it, but I couldn't. There was like 3 books that were all called the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
A Secret Garden, The Secret Garden, something.
The Secret Garden. Francis Hodgson Burnett.
What was that book about?
You'll have to read it and find out. But it was
Give us a synopsis.
It was published in 1911. But it's about a little girl who I don't know how to talk. I'm not giving you a synopsis.
Okay.
You can read it. I didn't realize it was a book. I watched the movie that it came out in 1993, so I would have been like two. But I started watching it when I was like 4 or 5, I think, and it was one of my favorite movies growing up because I thought it was beautiful. And then I was actually able to rent the book from Amazon Prime. And it was like, hey, I'm going to give this a read. So I read that, and then I watched the movie, and I cried. I cried like 3 or 4 times. And I have been doing yoga, of course. There was something else I was doing this week that I'm like, oh, I have to mention that on the podcast. I'm still working. I started a puzzle. I think I said that last podcast. I'm still working on it. I got the edges done, and now I'm just not motivated to do the inside of the puzzle. I built a fire pit today. I posted some pics on the Instagram, which we're recording this on March 13th, which it won't get released at this time, but check out the Instagram, follow us, leave some comments, give us some likes. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Check out our website.
Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean. You can find us there.
It's so crazy. When I saw us on Google Podcasts, I'm like, oh my God, this is real. It's real. We're on Google Podcasts.
We are semi-legitimate.
Yeah.
And that's our podcast, everybody.
Yes. Tune in next time. We're going to try and take it away from the serious route and move to a comedy, which was very difficult for me because I'm not really a comedy fan. And we are going to be discussing
Murder Mystery.
And it is on Netflix, has Jennifer Aniston and Adam Sandler. And yeah, that's about everything we got today.
So tune in next time for the Distractaholics Podcast?
Sure. Just, we'll see you then. We'll hear from you then. We'll talk, whatever. Bye.